Okay. What I'd like to do now is I'd like to have some volunteers that would share with me what the particular factor was that you felt it did exclude you. And all I want you to do to tell me this first time around is names you never want to be called again and things you never want done to you again. I'll come back to you, ask how you want to be treated. So who's my brave person? Who wants to go first?
So we're telling you a story of us?
What I want to hear is, yeah, however it works out. However it works out. If things you never want done to you again, if you want to relate to a particular thing that happened, yeah, that'll work fine. Jacqueline, and will you tell us what the factor is or what the issue is?
The one I picked was mental illness.
Mm-hmm.
I suffer from depression and borderline bipolar. It took me a while to arrive to that diagnosis and conclusion. So in the meantime, there was a lot of signs and symptoms that people call crazy, wacko, unstable. They just wanted to lock me up and throw the key away. So.
And what are some things that you don't want done to you again?
I don't want to be fired from jobs, from having a bad day. I want to be able to, like a diabetic person, calls in and says my sugar is low or high or I need a day to rest. I want a job where I can call and say my emotions are out of place today or I feel down or up and I can't go to work. And I want to be understood. I want my illness to be understood, just like any other biological illness. I don't want to be looked down upon. I want to be considered capable, and I don't want to be locked up and medicated, of course, over-medicated.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Debbie.
Mm-hmm.
And what was your issue, the factor? Yeah.
Okay. My issue is I was raised Seventh-day Adventist, and as a young child in a predominantly LDS environment, it was very difficult because I was looked at as weird, and different and wrong and stupid. And it's very difficult for a young child to have those kinds of experiences. And my parents, I was also raised in a pretty privileged area, but my parents were laborers and we didn't have a lot. And so I went to a school that had more privileged lifestyles. And one thing that I noticed is that given the two things and being put in that environment, I became very quiet, shy, and introverted. And consequently, I suffered in school on the academic side too. And so, but I think that I don't want to feel excluded, and I don't want to be teased or belittled. And so I think that it's a challenge that we have.
Yes.
And you're right, it's not the way we look. Sometimes it's what we have been raised in.
Right, right. Thank you. Okay, who else would like to go next? Yes, Brandy.
I can go. So the one that I picked was my orientation, and also it ties into my relationship status. Things that I would prefer never to be called again. Dyke, pedophile, I think is one of the worst.
Oh, and so your issue is, did you already say that? I apologize.
My sexual orientation.
Sorry. Okay.
I also I think one of the other most hurtful terms are sort of a sin against nature or a sin against God. Let's see, things I would never like to have done again. I would never like to be treated with suspicion that I can't be a good parent or that I'm a danger to children. I don't like to be treated with belief that I am promiscuous or that I'm not capable of having a long-term loving relationship that's legally recognized. I also never again want to have the experience that I don't have the opportunity to protect my family because I don't have a recognized relationship. So not being able to visit my partner or my child in the hospital, or being denied access to take my child to the doctor, or those kinds of exclusion from participating as a full, credible person in our community.
Great. Thanks so much. Appreciate that. Who else would like to go? Becky?
I'll go.
Okay, wonderful. And what's your issue?
My issue is I two things. When I was quite young, I had a reading disability. In second grade, they diagnosed me with reading disability, and so I was pulled out of my class. But also, I dealt with being overweight as a child, and started gaining weight when I was about 12 years old. And so I remember oftentimes feeling like I was the last one to be picked on the team. You know, nobody really wanted me on the team, and feeling they called me fatty and stupid, and so one of the things it says I never want to be treated again, or those are things I don't want to be called again, but I don't want to be ignored. I don't want to be excluded for what I look like, or for a disability of not being able to read. I never want to have people walk all over me anymore, and judge me because of my looks, of what, my outward body.
Great.
So.
All right, thank you. Okay, have any more brave souls? Want to go? Brad,
sure,
you
I'll
ready?
go. Yeah.
Okay, what is your issue?
Well, I'm in recovery from substance abuse, and also I've been arrested and have a legal history, and that has caused me some problems as far as getting a job, and I applied for a lot of jobs, and right off the bat, when they ask those questions, which I've always been very honest about, sometimes I get excluded. Originally, I wanted to go to University of Utah master's program to become a teacher, but I was told that wasn't going to happen, so I went to a different degree, social work. But even after I got my social work degree and had paid my fines and completed treatment and had been in recovery for many, many years, that legal history still came up and caused me problems. And to this day, sometimes it still does. So that's the issue.
Okay, thanks. Thanks so much. All right, who wants to go next? Z.
So I've always been different. And the issue I pick is that I came from an immigrant background. I was born in China. I was raised in American Samoa and then came to the United States. So I was always different. And even though I've been in the West for, longer than I was in China, I still speak with an accent. So every time I open my mouth, people tend to undermine that, she doesn't know how to speak English, she's incompetent, she cannot take the job. Why? Because she speaks with an accent. And so that's one thing that I face still to this day. And some of the names I don't want to be called is that growing up, I didn't speak a word of English coming to the United States, and people would always call that, she's that girl that back there that doesn't speak a word of English, so we shouldn't even talk to them. And so on and so forth. And so that's one word that I don't want to be called. The name that I don't want to be called again is probably, she's just different. Coming from a different country, she's an immigrant, so on and so forth. Even though I am an immigrant, I'm proud to be an immigrant myself. What was the other? Well, things that I never want to be done again. It's just that people undermine me just because I'm different.
Okay. Thanks so much, Z. Appreciate it. Okay, who wants to go next? Noni.
I have a physical disability, and because of that, my speech is a little slurred. I walk a little wobbly, so I've actually been accused of being intoxicated when I wasn't. I've been thought that I'm not very smart because of the way I speak. When you mentioned being treated differently in school, and I could learn, but because I have difficulty with my handwriting, the teachers would say, you don't have to do that. So one thing I never want to happen to me again is to still not have people have any expectation of me because I have a disability. I can do it. I might need to do it in a different way, But I suffered academically because I was just sit there, be good. I was the only kid in the class with a disability. So, you don't need to do that. And if I worked with you, it would take more time. So I had to play catch up at older. So I guess basically I want to be treated with respect. And I want people to recognize that I have talent and to have that expectation. And then something you mentioned is, young people wouldn't think that I would make a very good parent because I have a disability.
Okay, thanks, Noni. Appreciate that. Who wants to go next?
Can I just quickly say, the interesting thing too is that, I've been through a massive transformation, and going from being obese most of my life to now being a very attractive person, I'm getting, there's also judgment on the other side too. And so, as I used to be somebody in the background that wasn't acknowledged very much, to now being acknowledged, and people are thinking that I'm snobby or, that I'm stuck up and things like that. So it's really interesting to go from two completely different lives. And you kind of made me realize that where I didn't get asked out or dance before, now I don't get asked to dance now. So it's, it's just really interesting working with people's judgments and what they think of me and really how I see other people too.
That's great. Good observation. Archie, you want to go
Well,
next?
as an American of Mexican descent, we went through a lot of different things as we were growing up. Came out of Colorado to Idaho to Utah. The things I don't want ever to happen again are being called dirty greaser, that old Mex, and taco vendor, spick, all of these little nasty names. Because the concomitant of that is that then I have special names for them, and it makes me worse rather than better. Because for every name I've been called, I've come up with names for other people as well. And so I find myself kind of soiling myself and going into that same direction. So I have a tough time remembering that I don't reply in the same coin. And things I don't want done to me again are to be excluded because of my color and because of my, and I have no language deficiency outside of speaking too much or talking too much. But I don't want to be left out of the processes because of that. And because I've defended myself and defended our people and so on and so forth, I also became a red. So because I defend myself politically, I'm a red because I don't take that stuff. And secondly, my ideas are different. So the two combined, some friend of mine once said, it's bad enough being brown and Mexican without being brown, Mexican, and red.
And so, you want to clarify for everybody, red?
Red is a political thing of socialism and communism.
Okay.
People are called that automatically if they defend themselves.
And then I'm going to come back to you on how you want to be treated. Is that okay?
Good.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it. So let's see. You ready?
Yeah. The area that I circled was political. As I'm sure everybody knows, we live in a pretty politically divisive country where people tend to be grouped into either one or two different camps, liberal or conservative. And in college, during a particularly contentious time politically, I was part of an organization that generally had the opposite political view than myself. And as time went on, people started finding out that I didn't always agree with that political belief. And people started, I felt, judging me based on that political belief rather than who I was as a person. And it got to the point where I was very uncomfortable and felt that I couldn't speak my mind and I had to stay silent. And I eventually left. Because I didn't want to be a part of an organization that didn't allow me to speak my mind. And it was definitely life-changing. It really affected who I am now and how I look at the world.
Great. Thanks so much.
Rebecca.
Yes.
I think I have several factors. Isn't that crazy? As a Native American woman, I grew up on the reservation all my life, and my parents moved here when I was 12 years old. And, you know, it was like going to a foreign country, coming to live in a big city. And honestly, there wasn't a day that went by when I went to high school and I was bullied every day. And I wanted to run back to the reservation where I was surrounded by people who loved me, cared about me, didn't have conditions, didn't have high expectations, but could love me unconditionally. And so growing up here was not a pleasant experience. And as I've grown up through, gone to college and gone to be in this atmosphere of politics and through my career have interacted with people in society. And one of the things that I've noticed is that some of that bullying still hasn't gone away. It's still there, whether it's because I'm a Native American, whether I'm Diné, whether it's because I'm a woman, because I'm, there are a number of different things. I really would like to someday go without having been judged, especially when I go shopping. When I have security people follow me around in a department store, I want to turn to them, and I used to when I was younger, just turn around and say something to them. And confront them. It got me in trouble. I got in more trouble with my parents and with the law because I confronted people. And I still have occasions where I go into a supermarket mostly a department store where I have people follow me, or they want every XYZ. Let me see your driver's license. Let me see your picture ID. And then when I go into a dressing room, they want all my bags, or they look in my bags when I come out. It's still here. This issue of racism still exists in our society. I know firsthand because it's
happened to you.
It's happened to me.
Yes.
And, okay. That's enough.
Thank you. And I'll get back to you on how you want to be treated. Let's see. Go ahead, Brian.
Okay, and so for me, I selected ethnicity and race. And the words that I never want to be called again are boy, Oreo, and nigger. And so I've heard those terms all my life. Not necessarily I was called those terms, but I've heard those terms utilized. And because they are all attached to a comparison to white, they are extremely hurtful or harmful to hear, even if they're not said to me directly. Things that I never want to be done to me again is to be stereotyped, silenced, marginalized, perceived as threatening, either as an exception or undeserving, and experience hypersurveillance like you. And so I'm a graduate student at the University of Utah working on my PhD. And so I am either perceived as extremely intelligent or I got in because I was African American. And so each one of those titles carries assumptions. And the weight of those assumptions is tremendous at times. And so it is, even though that is the burden of race, I accept it. Even though that at times I am angered by having to accept it.
All right, thanks so much. One more. Are you ready to go on this?
So the factor that I chose was my faith. I'm Jewish. And it's not so much a name that I was called growing up, but a phrase that I still hear today, and I used to hear a lot more, the phrase Jude. And you oftentimes hear it when individuals refer to bargaining someone down or cheating them or robbing them. When I was in college, playing college soccer, and we would travel to another state and play an away game, and we felt that the ref cheated us. We got what would often say homered. Well, I would hear people say, we got Jude, referencing that we weren't treated fairly, but they would use my faith to do that. And so I never want to hear that again, obviously. It makes makes me feel excluded. It makes me feel less than. Taking something that's very important to me, a core part of who I am as an individual, and cheapening it. And then I also think as a father of 2 young children, it's something I don't want my kids to hear. I want them to feel part of something. And when you hear a phrase like that, just like, another one that I hear even more often today is the idea of referring to our nation as a Christian nation. When I hear that, not disrespecting what Christianity means to individuals who are, or what it means to this nation, but when I hear that, it makes me feel like I'm not part of this nation. And I don't want my son or I don't want my daughter to feel that. As you said, what makes us different is what makes this nation great.
Great. Thanks so much for all of you sharing. Those are really heartfelt stories that you've shared with all of us.